Good morning. Now, there's one tradition in Nigerian politics that has proven more durable than our electricity supply, more consistent than campaign promises, and perhaps more bipartisan than we care to admit. It's called "We Inherited It." Now, every administration seems to arrive with a broom, a renewed hope, or a renewed promise. But after settling into office, the first major discovery is usually that the previous government left behind a warehouse full of problems. And suddenly, insecurity was inherited, the economy was inherited, debt was inherited, hunger was inherited, broken institutions were inherited as well. Now, even the problems that existed during the campaign somehow become shocking discoveries after inauguration. Now, to be fair, there is truth in that argument. I mean, no president starts with a blank sheet of paper. Nigeria's security challenges did not begin in one administration. Boko Haram predates late President Buhari's presidency. Banditry evolved over several years. That's very true. I mean, farmer-herder conflicts have deep historical roots. Kidnapping has grown over decades. So when President Bola Tinubu says his administration inherited security compromises, historical injustice, and institutional frailties, he's pointing to realities that did not suddenly appear in May 2023, so we agree. But here's where Nigerians begin to ask difficult questions. If these problems were already visible before the election, weren't they also visible during the campaign? Because we know campaigns are essentially job interviews. Imagine applying for the position of managing director of a struggling company. Now, during the interview, you confidently declared, "Give me this job. I know exactly how to fix this company." Then 2 years later, you call a staff meeting only to announce, "You people don't understand what I've inherited." Well, wasn't that a company you campaigned to manage? Now, this isn't unique to President Bola Tinubu. I mean, the late President Muhammadu Buhari made similar arguments during his tenure. He frequently reminded Nigerians that he inherited a country battling Boko Haram, weakened institutions, and years of neglect. At different times, even members of his administration also maintained that the depth of insecurity they met in office was a consequence of decisions made way before 2015. And now, history appears to be repeating itself. The interesting thing is that today's opposition often sounds exactly like yesterday's government critics, while today's government often sounds remarkably like yesterday's opposition targets. It's almost as if in Nigeria, opposition parties campaign with certainty but govern with context. Again, of course, context matters. No serious analyst expects any president to eliminate insecurity overnight. I mean, as complex security threats require institutional reforms, intelligence gathering, military capacity, state cooperation, and time. President Tinubu himself has also argued that weak grassroots governance has contributed to insecurity and that strengthening local government institutions is part of the long-term solution. But citizens also have a right to ask yet another question. At what point does "we inherited it" gradually become "this is now" or "this is ours to fix"? Because inheritance explains where a problem came from. It does not on its own explain how long the explanation should last. Every new government deserves time, we know that. But also, every government also asks for responsibility. Perhaps Nigerian politics needs a subtle shift. Less energy spent explaining why the house was already leaking. More energy should be spent showing us the repairs. Because citizens do not vote for historians, they vote for leaders. History may explain the crisis. Leadership is expected to change the ending. And just maybe, that is the real campaign promise Nigerians are waiting to see fulfilled. Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast Extras, a Sunday edition. My name is Chiweta Onyema, and I'm not alone. I have the beautiful Queen in the house. Queen, good morning to you.
Morning, Chiweta. How are you?
I'm good. How are you feeling today?
Well, a bit under the weather, but I'm okay. Thank you for asking. Amazing monologue there because, you know, especially in Nigeria, we're wondering, every leader comes up with a new plan. But the plan is to govern the people in the right way. I feel like to an extent, the citizens kind of want similar things. So when they all come with, oh, this was happening before we got here. Like you said, it's not about telling us what's fault, how are we fixing it? So hopefully all these calls, we're renewing calls for renewed hope. Hope we get it right. 2027 is just around the corner. Thank you for the reminder.
I'm telling you, we need to get it right at the end of the day because we can't keep going on with, reminding us of our problems and remind us of our woes. We know it was there. Exactly. The idea was you told us you will fix it. So when you get into office, fix it and do not remind us of what we already know. Anyway, let's get the show on the road. Welcome. It's Breakfast Extra right here on News Central.
Good morning. Even though I took you to church yesterday, happy Sunday. Now, welcome to Breakfast Extra in News Central, I beg your pardon. Now, today, we're going to bring you stories behind the headlines and the conversations shaping Nigeria, Africa, and the world. Here's what we have lined up for you today. As life increasingly moves online, so do the risks. This morning, we'll be examining the growing calls for stronger digital safeguards and what it will take to better protect Nigerians in the online space. We also turn our attention to the disturbing rise in jungle justice following the arrest of 3 suspects in the murder of a University of Jos student. Then we'll discuss the future of electricity in Nigeria as plans to phase out power subsidies continue. On Wellness Extra, we will focus on cholera prevention, exploring how communities can help stop recurring outbreaks before they claim more lives. And of course, in Focus Africa, we will break down the implications of the United States' decision to centralize visa processing and what the changes could mean for African travelers and applicants. It's another packed morning of insightful discussions, expert analysis, and the stories making headlines. So stay with us. This is Breakfast Extra. But before we dive into the stories, we'll bring you the dailies. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, before we start the dailies, I was chatting with Chiwete. I was like, I don't know how we are surviving. 1 second, as an adult, yeah, okay. The next morning, you wake up with flu and cold and everything. Is it the weather?
Like, there's no one to call. I mean, in terms of when we're kids, you can literally cry to your mom or to your father.
There's no mother to call. She's in her house in peace. You have to figure it out. And you're like, oh, should I rest? You're like, no, there's work. But, you know, in terms of your monologue, and a lot of events has been happening. The more we get closer to the date for election, we're just seeing events upon events, agencies and stories, and you're wondering, when will this end?
Well, I think we kind of expect it to happen. If you've been observing Nigerians, if you've been observing the pattern of Nigeria or the political scene in Nigeria, most times when you get into elections, that's when everything is let loose.
It's a push.
The opposition is trying so much to make to make the ruling party not look so good to the citizens. And the ruling party is trying to make a claim that, look, we need to be here. We've done enough to be re-elected. So you're going to see things like that. There's more to come. I mean, this is just August. I expect that more will happen between now and December.
Of course. But well, let's see what the headline says. We'll start with the Tribune newspaper, the Sunday Tribune. Right at the center, it says INEC list only varsity decree for Tinubu. You find that on page 5. Atiku Obi Makinde orders provide full educational history. I think we need to be transparent in everything we're doing. If they've called out for everybody to bring out their document and certification, then everybody should bring everything out.
The thing about this certificate conversation is you need to look into the Constitution. I stand to be corrected, but I think for you to run for office in Nigeria,
you just need your secondary
school. And it's even attempted, so you don't necessarily have to pass, just attempt. Just show evidence that you attempted to write the exam. So that's how.
So the attempting is just that's the will.
Exactly. Just show that you wrote the exam.
It's good. I'm with you. Why are we honoring past Ekiti governors with legacy projects? Says Oyebanji. You find that on page 9. And on that, why OBJ is after me. Atiku says, no regret standing against ex-president, he says, reveals why he is seeking to be president. And group Timi Frank asked Obasanjo to leave Atiku alone. Quite interesting. And Olubadan, Makinde, CCII, others mourn as Ibadan chief Lekon Alabi dies at 76. May his soul rest in peace. And right below, on June 2026, Accord, APC, ADC, DLA urge INEC to fix issues ahead of poll. And right at the top, state of economy. You can't speak for all Christians, presidency tells Onayekon, accuses him of abusing clerical privilege. And last but not the least, a Walla War Foundation opens nominations for 2026 Leadership Prize Sectoral Leadership Awards. I think that'll be all for the Tribune, yes.
Just before we move on to the next newspaper, this particular headline, it beats me, why OBJ is after me. And I think it's okay for Atiku to explain, because for the longest time since Obasanjo left office in 2007, we keep hearing the same thing. He made a mistake trusting Atiku. Personally, I think, with all due respect, Obasanjo, I think we should move. We should move on from that already. I think you've said it enough.
You said 2007.
He's been saying it since then. Oh, I made a mistake. Oh, I picked Atiku. Atiku was a wrong mistake. Was the wrong, running mate. He was. I think we've had enough.
I wish and I wish and I hope.
Just move on from that.
We've wished ourselves one in 2026. What's the next paper?
Moving on to The Guardian now. The major headline says, silence over state killings is Nigeria's real crime, says Nobel laureate Wale Soyinka. There's another headline here, top left. After 8 years of infertility, mother-baby survived rare abdominal pregnancy. Abuja at 50, so what happened to Wike's promise? Transfer of baton at JAM, Olade's legacy and challenges before Segun Aino. Senate probes safe schools, funds demands accountability. 2 Chinese nationals bag 50 years jail term for illegal export of Nigeria's minerals. The federal government unveils electricity sector reform agenda, rules out tariff hike. And Oshun police deploy new CP as party faults Oyebamiji's absence at peace accord.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday. You know, you had mentioned the fact that you're concerned if the CP, a new CP now, when we have just a few days to the election, was going to change anything. But again, all we can do is hope. They can't give us all the intricate details. We can only hope that everything will go well and people will not be axed down. Like you know, yesterday one of the guests had mentioned that even on the day they were signing peace accord, someone was axed down in his car. It's crazy. The menace is unbelievable.
It's a sad situation in Osun State, and I really don't know if we're having this kind of situation now, just barely 2 weeks to the election, and what was going to happen on election day, or
if people will show up out of fear, they might just say, you know what, let's just stay at home.
And that's where the problem is. That is the numbers. If people do not come out to vote, that creates room for rigging.
And that's why we need to find easier ways to vote from where you are. You don't have to come out, so you know.
Since we work from home, how about we vote from home?
I agree. I agree with you. I agree. It should be a hybrid thing. I think let's go to the next paper, The Nation, the Sunday Nation. Right there says INEC releases details of Tinubu, Atiku, Obi, and 16 orders, and rejects Jonathan orders presented by PDP's Turaki group. Interesting. You know, there's a part where they said they didn't want former President Jonathan to come back, and now he's back. And, you know, they had posted a beautiful former First Lady, Patience, saying that no, she doesn't want to come back.
If God has saved you from there,
God has saved you from there, don't come back. And now him coming back, I think I just have mixed feelings. I remember one of her videos where the Chibok girls situation, where she asked the parents to come out, and a couple of them didn't show up, and she was crying. That video just stuck with me. You know, she was like, is it good? Is it good? I'm like, there is God, or, you know, somebody really trying to help, but, you know, people were not showing. So now I don't know if, you know, this is the right step. But, hey, not a politician. That's just my thought. What else do we have there? Nigeria joins a Saudi-led Red Sea Defense Alliance.
Okay.
You find that on page 36. And Fubara's biggest mistakes as river government. Fubara's biggest mistake as Rivers governor by Wike. I will like to read that.
I want to hear what he has.
Me too. Like you said, Atiku to Obasanjo, you are unforgiving and vindictive.
Yeah, it's been years. So many years ago.
It's been years.
Let it go.
Let it go. And right at the top, presidency chides Onayekon for comments on Catholic bishops' meeting with Tinubu, describes disclosure as abuse of clerical privilege. And besides it, U.S. slams $20,000 visa bond on Nigeria and other African nations. Nigeria, fix our country so people don't make us look bad because we're looking for visa to either travel or do business. Thank you and God bless. What do we have next?
The next is Sunday Punch, the big headline here, of course, talking about the same headline we had in the Nation. Presidency rebukes Catholic bishops after Onayekon's outburst. With the rider, bishops not so custodians of Nigerians' conscience, says Tinubu's aide. Too few people telling President the truth, says the bishop. The top left corner of the Sunday Punch, 2027, INEC releases candidates list. Jonathan Nwoko Goje missing. Of course, on top right of the Punch, more heat on Atiku as APC backs Obasanjo. Oh, really? Interesting. This is a case of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Okay, I get that. Fubara, biggest loser in Rivers crisis, says Wike. Of course, this is the headline here on floods threatening 151 communities, 6.5 million Nigerians, says Red Cross. There's another headline here, says why I pursued second PhD at 89, NAS fellow, Professor Nwagu. Okay, families recount horror as bandits raid choir community.
This bandits raid is just becoming so rampant. It's sad, it's terrifying. My heart goes out to all the family. It is so terrifying. We sit here, you know, Sunday in, Sunday out, and we discuss how our fellow citizens, our neighbors, have been attacked daily. Like yesterday, you know, Stephen Enoch was like, at this point, we don't even know if they are bandits. What a day. Normally, it's more like you want something, but now it doesn't look like they want anything. They just
get
come,
in there, kill.
They kill, and then they go. It's so sad. It's terrifying. I don't know.
And it's really, really a sad situation. I'm hoping that with this plan to, of course, create more army divisions, just maybe, you know, we might have a more military presence in more communities. But if we're going to tell ourselves the truth, the numbers are not looking good as regards the number of personnel we have in the military. Yeah. And the military doesn't even look attractive enough to get those targeted 28,000 personnel to. Well,
let's hope, you know, they had mentioned that the welfare is getting better. So let's hope and pray that, you know, it will improve, because if our people here are traveling to get medals and then we come back and they're not seeing it, then I don't know. We have to make use of what we have. Do you have any more for the
very last headline here? Pella Jarvis gifted house dollars in star-studded wedding. Yeah, everybody was talking about that wedding yesterday.
Congratulations
different
to
celebrities had their funny entrances into that wedding. But anyway, we wish them.
When you say funny entrance, specify.
You know him. You know him. He came with doctors with you know.
To treat the wedding.
Is he saying someone
treats Nigeria? Okay, I think our last paper for this morning will be the Sunday Times. And right at the center, ICPC raises alarm over 14 billion naira NHF project with no visible development. This is what we're talking about yesterday in terms of allocating budget, and then we're not seeing it in reality. 14 billion naira.
We always hear about the big money.
No visible development. Like it just poof, like Cinderella, just at midnight, gone into the abyss. Right at the top, 2027, we submitted Jonathan other candidates' names manually to INEC, Turaki's PDP, Turkey-led faction in PDP says, and WAFCON. Aisha Falode says Super Falcon can do it again. Can they?
I think they can, actually. They can. I mean, winning the WAFCON 10 times. Some people even suggested that they probably should just wait till all other teams have played and whoever is the best could come and play the Falcons.
Interesting.
Because of how good they are. But let's see. They didn't start so well. They lost the first game. So let's see what happens. They can actually do it again.
Interesting. And of course, it says here 65 of 69 Tinubu appointed ambassadors secure host countries' approval. Well, I think that's a win for us. Yewada.
But I'm thinking about the timing, though, because we don't know what's going to happen at the election.
Well, we wait and see.
It's quite the timing for me.
It's not far anymore.
Why?
We're in the 8th month. We wait and see. That's all we can do. Hopefully, all the talking we've been doing over the years, citizens are opening their ears and seeing and coming out to choose what they want. So again,
beyond just having ambassadors, the ambassadors have to really do their job and help protect Nigerians in this country.
Say it as it is. Don't sugarcoat or PR us to look beautiful. Say it as it is.
Tell us to thank the president when he has not, done what he's supposed to do.
Exactly. And lastly, Yewada celebrates DTN at 100 Politician of the Year award, and I think that'll be all for the headlines in the paper. Thank you all for joining us to read the headlines this morning. Let's go on a very short break, and when we return, the conversation continues. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Now, the conversation around online safety is getting renewed attention, following, of course, the National Policy Dialogue on Rights, Justice, and Digital Safety held in Abuja. Now, the dialogue brought together policymakers, civil society organizations, and technology experts to address growing concerns over cyberbullying, online harassment, digital fraud, and other forms of online abuse.
Now, stakeholders are now calling for stronger safeguards to protect Nigerians while promoting a safer and more inclusive digital space. Our news correspondent Sumaya Bubakar has this report.
Stakeholders from civil society, development organizations, the technology sector, and government institutions gathered in Abuja to address the growing challenge of online violence. The event featured the launch of Toxic Tech, a national study by TechHard documenting the experiences of more than 370 participants across Nigeria and highlighting the impact of technology-facilitated violence.
If someone is harassing you physically, in the digital realm, it's a cyber harassment. If someone is bullying you physically in the digital world, it's a cyberbullying. So it's just a reflection of the violence that happens online. And we have also seen that some of the violence that happen online lead offline. And sometimes the one offline lead online.
While violence affects women in general at a certain percentage, it is ×2 or sometimes ×5% how it affects the community of the most vulnerable, who are women and girls with disability.
I think it's very important that all stakeholders that are relevant come together to start discussing the policies that are needed to provide a foundation for digital safety, because those policies will provide the foundation and the framework on which laws, on which every other action that stakeholders can take will be built on to ensure there is safety.
Participants say online abuse is affecting freedom of expression, economic participation, and access to justice, especially among vulnerable groups. They are calling for stronger policies, improved platform accountability, and collaborative action to ensure Nigerians can participate safely in the digital space.
Posts that are damaging to the person, that can cause them harm, Twitter will leave it up after multiple reports have been made, and they will tell you that, oh, this has not violated our policies, or it's essentially, we don't give a hoot about what you're going through, right? And so we're saying that platforms need to take safety important.
Women and girls with disabilities should understand and also have knowledge around digital literacy, so they're able to first identify issues around violence, so ableist languages within, the online community.
We need stronger laws, right, in terms of how, as it were, digital platforms work. There was also the need that we noticed that it's not just stronger laws and stronger regulation, or stronger frameworks rather. We also need that whatever frameworks exist right now, the implementation has to be better.
Stakeholders say the report should drive stronger policies. greater accountability, and safer digital spaces for all Nigerians. In Abuja, for News Central, Sumaya Abubakar.
And joining us to have this conversation is Endurance Aruku, who's an IT expert. Endurance, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
I know we're already chatting, before the camera came on, but now, for the National Policy Dialogue to talk about, this online abuse and all that, what were the significant conversations they mentioned in their engagement?
Okay, so one of the significant conversations that was looked into is the foundation of these policies, looking at frameworks put in place to actually look at the cyberspace, because the cyberspace entails so many stakeholders, right? When they say stakeholders, even down to the user. So they look at addressing the foundation of this policy, enacting policies, and also the acknowledgement of the fact that it's actually a shared responsibility. It's not just the policymakers or the regulators, the government, as the case may be. Even the users also have a role to play. So these are part of the aspect. Then awareness, education, literacy is also very paramount. They look at how do we tell the village man, the farmer, the people who have limited knowledge to create such awareness that there are things like this exist, so they take advantage of such frameworks. So those are part of the key aspects that we look into.
Now, when we look at the situation now as regards, online engagement, we have things like, online abuse, digital fraud, misinformation. These things continue to affect Nigerians. Yeah. At this point in time, do you think our current laws and institutions are keeping the pace with, how these things are threatening Nigerians online at the moment?
Okay, so one of the things that you should look at is the fact that cyber criminals are very fast, and some of these activities are actually very fast, right? But we don't have, at the moment, a fast-paced regulations or law that will meet up with such occurrences. And be that as it may, I think one of those things that is needed to be done is constant regulation or constant update of such occurrences, because there are new things that comes on board every now and then. So we have a kind of not really dynamic, not fast-paced kind of policies, but however, that can be corrected. So what we have at the moment actually look at some certain aspects of this bullying or this criminal act. But however, because of the speed at which it goes, every day people are online, every day people are committing either one cybercrime or the other. But is it every now and then that we regulate our policy? No.
So is it a case of we don't have a regulatory body, or the regulatory body is kind of slow?
Okay, so we do have a regulatory body, right? But the rate at which such regulations are updated is kind of slow. Of course, there are regulation body. We have the Nigerian Data Protection Act. We have even there's an arm of the police, the NCCC arm of the police, that look into such cases or such cyber crimes, right? But just that the frequency at which these laws or these policies are made is not catching up with the frequency at which these crimes are being committed.
So, you just talked about us having a regulatory system, and I feel like Nigeria, we always just adapt without checking. We talked about policies earlier. What would you say are the policies they need to look into now? What are the ones they need to fix, and what are the ones that's working? Okay,
so even as we have the old Cybercrime Act, we have the Data Protection Act and the likes of others. Every now and then, they emanate new behavioral patterns human users online comes up with. So when those kind of things occur, I think the regulators or the policymakers have to capture such. And how do they capture such? There should be a constant report of such cases. Limitation of reports also lead to the obsolete of such policies, because when there is no awareness, when there is no report, thank God for social media that helps us to, get all these, So, and I feel like we do not have a dedicated channel or TV channel that solely speak about crime, just like we have in other crimes of the world. That all they do is they report various crimes around the nation, whatever place is happening. So they have people all over reporting it. When these things are put in place, I think they will be able to absorb or meet up with
So basically, we need to have a proper data collection system.
Yes. Really, when you talk about data collection system, there are actually some data collection system. But again, we have to, the pattern at which data is collected, updated, or make use of, also have to critically be looked into. And from the aspect of the users, so many users are not aware that such kind of things exist. So when they are not aware, they don't report it. You know, sometimes when there is no report, there's no data to trend on, there's no data to work on, so it becomes a problem. So these are some of the fundamental issues or fundamental problems that limit, you know, such occurrences.
Now, when it comes to creating a safe, you know, online space or digital space, you know, it's really not the government's responsibility alone.
Yes.
I'd like to ask you, what role should, you know, technology companies, schools, and parents play in this?
So it is a shared responsibility, right? The government, from the regulatory angle, have their part to play. Then other stakeholders like the users, the school, the technology platform also have their roles to play. But let me itemize. For the technology companies, they have to get like a constant technology that will help them to monitor content that are not ethical, or content that's or incite bullying, so that they are either taking down such content. However, some of them actually have, because there are some social media handles where you can report some content, right? And even sometimes when you put some content, there's a social media handle that ordinarily from the back end, they take it down. But the frequency at which this is done is not almost instantaneous. So they should look at improving such technology so that, you know, they are able to, you know, act as soon as possible. That's from the technology end. Parents, institutions like school also have a role to play. Institutions like school have to look at making it cyber security a curricular thing, starting from the primary school. You know, that awareness should be created. So schools should also look at that as a curricular thing, right? Then for parents also have to teach their children how to make use of the internet, what to access, you know, like putting parental guidance or even educating the children what kind of website based on age factor or mental health, as the case may be, they need to access. So it's a collective and a shared responsibility. When everybody, it is beyond the IT department or the IT personnel, right? When everybody puts their hands on decks, then there will be a significant improvement.
But there's also a thing we need to talk about, which is also the awareness. It's a good thing, of course, you've said that, you know, parents, schools, you know, technology companies should do their bit. But when it comes to perhaps parents now, and even, you know, students, in terms of awareness, where are we in people actually knowing what to do to ensure that they play their role in building a safe space?
Okay. Online? So one of those things that were discussed also is awareness, like I stated earlier, right? Government should also invest, and even institutions to invest on constant awareness. Recently, when I go on YouTube, I just see this, or I play my music on YouTube, I see this ad on codeine, something like that Nigeria forbidding codeine, right? It comes up every now and then. So those kind of unsolicited adverts should be put out there so that for the internet users, every time, even while they are not soliciting for it, this kind of advert pops up so they are aware. Then publications can also be made. When you go drive through major roads, right, even countryside and all that, publications, billboards, flyers should also be, you know, put out there so that that awareness is created. Then sensitization, there can be some community gatherings. People can go to rural areas, you know, town halls, gather the community people and also create such awareness. So it is very paramount. And like I said, being a shared responsibility, this cannot just be in government. Some NGOs can also pick it up. Even individual schools can also create such awareness. So,
you know, watching the report from our correspondent, there was a lady who mentioned something about flagging down a comment on Twitter, and, you know, they got a response that, you know, they don't see anything wrong with it. Would you say that in terms of using, you know, the internet, also there's also a culture system, and should Nigeria also check, you know what, if this culture is happening in other countries, we don't accept it here, so we're going to block it. So how do we do that? Okay,
so one of the problems of using the internet is a jurisdiction factor. You know, what is applicable in other countries might not be applicable here. Just like, let's say like China, I'm aware that they have their own dedicated system that they solely regulate, right? So I think for such, Nigeria also have the power in our own ecosystem to enact such, not just policy, infrastructure, and make sure that they invest in some digital forensic analysis or infrastructure that will help monitor and take down such, as the case may be. So basically, there is a foundation issue, which is policy. There's also implementation issue and the technological issue, which government have to really look at putting a lot of funds. Then there's also a research issue. I stand to be corrected. At the moment, I'm not sure there are scholarships here in Nigeria that or funds for IT or AI research. You know, AI is taking over at the moment. And I'm aware that in the US and other parts of the world, when you want to go and study AI, they can even give you like 100% tuition free, just because they are fundings, just because they want brains, they want people who could bring out new things.
Building young
yes,
leaders.
But, you know, we at the moment don't have such. So I believe when government also look at, or NGOs, individuals, or people who are in that crime look at putting up funds for new brains, either you like it or not, Nigerians are very intelligent people. And if you are not even intelligent, you cannot even act as a cyber criminal. So they have to look at harnessing such talent, you know, and converting them for the good of the people. So all these are some of these things that need to be.
Andreas, let's use that word that Chiwete did not want to hear earlier. Yeah, there was a time where they were telling people to check their accounts, their Twitters, their Facebook, whatever. If you had said anything concerning, you know, the President Donald Trump, then your visas was going to have issue. I'm sure everybody heard about that.
Very true.
In Nigeria, we're paying PR companies outside to make us look good or to say things about Nigeria. Would you say that we don't have the political will to fix the things that we're supposed to be fixing? If AI is taking over, we're supposed to be having, like you said, research institutions to do that. So would you say this is not just a community problem? This is bigger than us. This is a political will issue in terms of not fixing these things that need to be fixed.
Yes, I think it's political interest because if our people in terms of affairs from the governor, the local government, the federal, whoever is in charge, are looking at, or the commissioner for technology, whoever is in charge, looking at, okay, you know what, these are the policies that are in place. Let's either expand or modify, as the case may be, and see how we can inculcate every other aspect that is lacking. Then, you know, those kind of aspects will be addressed. So it's a thing of politics. It's also a thing of the people in administration. Is that their area of interest? You know, unfortunately, every president or governors or whoever comes in and they have their own focal point. They have where they want to concentrate on. Really, in recent time, I don't think I've seen any of them who campaign as technology being an item of whatever thing they want to improve. I don't think, I stand to be corrected.
It's like it's an afterthought.
So it's a problem. So why are you not campaigning to say, you know what, I'm going to increase or improve on the technological advancement of the country as one of your agendas, what you're coming in to build on? Because either you like it or not, if we are not careful, AI will consume us. There are so many technology that is driven by AI and so many fraud that is being perpetrated by AI. The truth is that these cyber criminals are improving on a daily basis. You've seen AI-generated images, videos, and you are amazed. In fact, so many people fall for a lot of scam recently. I don't want to mention names. You know, before the people who were involved could come out to debunk that they are not actually the one involved. You know, one of those things, or few things that captures human when it comes to why they fall prey for these cyber crimes is money, the love for money, instantaneous money. Like I tell people, wealth is not instantaneous, it's over time. So the moment you're looking for hush money, you just want to get it off, you fall prey, right? Another thing again is love. People are lonely, right? And that's why I see so there are so many issues that need to be addressed. Policy, foundation, political will is a strong factor to eradicating this in summary.
So let's talk about, you know, how, when it comes to justice system now, as regards when people are even found wanting, right? Where are we with that? In when they've actually found a particular, you know, criminal
Culprit.
online or culprit, and, you know, we're looking for we're talking about justice now. Where are we as regards, you know, persecuting people who are found guilty of doing this?
So at the moment, I don't think there is any special court for cybercrime. And you see, some of these cases that are reported, the police or the body that is involved has taken up, lingers on.
Yeah.
You know, there is no instantaneous judgment. So there should be, again, a framework, a timeline to say, you know what, when anything is regarding cybercrime, right, within the next 2 weeks, just like Governor Okpebholo has said about the whole, what's it called, kidnapping and all that, that there will be a special court set up and all that, just to facilitate. Those kind of things should be enacted, should be brought into place, you know, so that if anybody is found wanting within the next 2 weeks, 1 month, the whole case is concluded and justice, So when these people are aware that, okay, this system actually, so there is no time to even want to curb the system, then everybody is aware, everybody is skeptical. So it will reduce it. But one thing we also say in a same word, just like the sociologists will say there's deviant in every society, right? There will also be presence of these things. However, we can minimize and take it to the barest minimum.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Endurance Aruku, I want to say thank you.
Thank
He's an IT expert. Thank you for having this conversation with us. You had mentioned that what we need is stronger policies and, safeguards, ways that, Nigeria is safer online. And we don't need to adapt everything. We have to make sure that it works with our culture. And, of course, political will, research institutions, since AI is kind of taking over. Thank you so much for having this conversation with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Endurance.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you have it. Please, those using social media, please stay safe out there. Avoid to fight. Avoid saying things that you don't mean. And, be safe out there while we're still fixing the policies. Let's go on a short break. When we return, we start another conversation. Stay with us.
All right, it's time for us to check out cartoons from our dailies. It's time for strips right here on Breakfast Extra. So let's kickstart with the very first one. Okay, there we have it. From Business Day. It says, shows two people. Now, this cap, though, and with that sign, shows, of course, someone that looks like the president, and, of course, someone here who looks like former vice president, Atiku. He's quite interesting. It reminds me of that song, You Be Thief, I know be thief, you be robber, hey. Argument. I think this just describes what's been happening in Nigeria's political space. Ruling party saying, no, your opposition, you don't know what's happening here. We inherited problem, we're fixing Nigeria. And the opposition is saying, no, you're not doing enough. The money you said you've allocated to this, we're not seeing it. We cannot, so pointing fingers at each other. And trust me, this will happen for not for a very long time, but as we count down to the election, we're going to be seeing more of this happening. So, yeah, that's quite an interesting one. Queen, what do you have to say about this particular?
Well, looking at the strip, behind them in this argument, you could see they have lobbyists behind them. So if you've already paid the lobbyists to do what they're supposed to do, why are you still arguing? Let them do the job. And again, I think we're over this allegation situation. I feel like they need to let it go. Whoever is in power should do what they need to do and just let these allegations go. It's becoming a child's play.
I think at the end of the day, the citizens are the ones who even suffer because it can also be a distraction. The energy you use in defending yourself, how about you put that energy into ensuring, let the citizens be the ones to even speak for you on your behalf to say, oh, this particular government is doing enough and what we voted for them to do is exactly what they're doing. Let's move on to our very next strip. Ooh, this one's interesting now. Now, we can see a very big bottle of liquor. It says Reforms Liquor. Bottled in sacrifice, served in luxury. We can see a set of people who look like politicians, serving. And it's quite interesting because I was thinking that the reforms should be the ones, the leaders now should be the ones serving the people. But it looks like it's the other way around. The people who look so malnourished, I mean, with the big head and the big tummy, are the ones serving the government, which kind of looks like a depiction of what we face right now in Nigeria. It's quite interesting seeing that. Queen, what do you have to say about this?
Well, you can see Reform Liquor, I say bottled in sacrifice and, serving in luxury. We've seen electricity issue, we've seen fuel. There's so many things. Again, what the IMF is saying is not translating in the lives of Nigerians. So we're seeing different reforms, but the people are bleeding. But it feels like they are, benefiting from the reforms. So we're pouring back into them while we're suffering. And it doesn't make sense. It's not aligning.
This particular strip takes me back to when President Tinubu was sworn in. I mean, having to come out to say Nigerians have to tighten their belt. Nigerians have to make the sacrifices, and it was quite tough for Nigerians. We didn't even prepare for it. The first thing was subsidy was gone, and we know what that has done to us up until now.
And Nigerians, allegedly, the belt has strangled them.
Exactly. I mean, the taxation is also there. You know, the taxes are there. So it looks like the people keep giving, and they don't see anything in return, and that is not the way it should be. It should be the other way around. Reforms, it's high time government starts to work on us seeing results, because the first term is about to be done. We don't know what's going to happen next after elections, but I think it's high time government does what they need to do. We're asking for results at this point. If it's about sacrifice, we've done more than that. After we've sacrificed, at least maybe try and enjoy, I beg. Let's move on to the next strip. Okay, this one is a conversation. It's quite interesting. Someone talking to someone in government. The person says, I'm not surprised that Mbappe won the golden boot. He deserved it. And then the other person, who, if you ask me, looks like an activist, says, that's not my major concern right now, governor. Okay, says, so what's your major concern? He says, there's so much corruption in your government. Let's talk about another kind of boot. And the governor says, what boot? And then this activist-looking person says, how to boot out Wuru-Wuru, GBT, and Mago-Mago from your government so that we don't boot you out in 2027. This is a good one. You know, first and foremost, you can see that the governor was attempting to deflect, more or less, you know, the conversation to something that was not as important as what this particular person who's like an activist is there for. And it just tells you sometimes what our government priority can be sometimes. You know, where we're trying to talk about Nigerians moving forward, Nigerians talking about hunger, and some people think that's the right time to, you know, do things like changing the Nigerian national anthem and going back to what it was in the past when there are other pressing issues. So I just think that this just depicts exactly what it is when it comes to governance in Nigeria. A lot of times, it looks like we're focusing on the minor. Sorry, yes, we're focusing on the minor and abandoning the major. The major things are staring us in the face that we need to fix, but sometimes we just deviate from it. I don't even know if it's intentional, just so we don't focus on what's important. But I think it just tells us one thing, that government sometimes, they need to focus on what is most important. Queen, what do you think about this?
All I can say is, Nigeria, open your eyes, look at your history, and decide.
Good one. Let's move on to the next strip real quick. Interesting. Okay, this one is from the Vanguard. It says project 2027 project, and we can see somebody who we can't get the identity, just somebody wearing agbada. That's all we can say. It says, on your mandate we shall stand on your, and then of course someone who looks like the president says, shut up. On whose mandate? With which legs, if I hear them again? And I look at the legs, and I've seen something quite interesting. PFIPC is licking. Ooh. You know, this was, if you ask me, Queen, I think this is one of the most mysterious scandals that was surrounding Nigerian presidency in recent times, where things were happening, what everybody was saying, you know, tagging into that Shaggy song. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was not me. And everybody's just wondering, how did an agency get set up, get funding in our budget, go through the National Assembly, and then somebody says, oh, it never existed? So
Met ambassadors.
Sorry?
Had events.
I'm telling you.
Met ambassadors.
Had staff, 300 staff, had a place, had an office in the Federal Secretariat, and nobody.
Had a place at the table.
I'm telling you, and nobody, absolutely nobody knows what happened. I mean, this is the height of ghosting, if you ask me. If
The height
some
of
person is talking
leakage.
about some guy or some girl ghosted, you know, it's not up to this one, because nobody, we can't see anybody. We're just seeing the money move. We're just seeing the, you know, allocations being made, but nobody's taking responsibility as to what really happened with the PFIPC. It's really, really sad. Do you have another strip?
We are still
Yes,
waiting.
we still have one more. Okay, let's go to the next one. Next strip. Ooh, okay. This is what's happening right now. This explains Nigeria's electoral scene at this point in time. Now, this particular one is from the Vanguard by Leke Moses. Now, you can see INEC boldly written, but it looks like INEC is almost torn apart, because the opposition is pulling from one side, and then the ruling party is pulling from the other side. And I think this just describes the battle that's been happening between political parties being deregistered, not registered, the back and forth, between opposition parties as regards if they're eligible to be on the ballot. And of course, people have talked about the fact that, having that back and forth, it looked at some point Nigeria's democracy was threatened because people were saying, are you saying we're only going to have one party system come 2027 elections? But luckily, in recent times, the Court of Appeal, yes, has actually ruled in favor of the ADC and other opposition parties and said, look, no, this guy's, that judgment by Justice lawful does not stand. As a matter of fact, this parties can actually, they have a chance to run come 2027. And trust me, this battle has been on for quite some time. ADC, NDC, almost every time one particular party just comes up, the next thing you're seeing is a lawsuit saying, oh, you're not eligible to present a candidate in the 2027 election. Queen, what do you think about this?
Well, from the picture, you can already see that there's a problem. INEC is supposedly supposed to be independent. So for the citizens to already feel like there's a loophole, there's already a trust deficit there. Because, you could see the NEC being pulled to one side. Even the ISF is on its own. There's no rope holding it. So there's already a view from the citizens, and they're already concerned. Will the election be fair? Will the process be fair? Can we trust INEC, who's supposed to be independent? That is the problem with Nigeria. So if we're already depicting this picture, then INEC has they have a really strong work to do to convince the citizens otherwise that, we need to get to a point where this is not even happening. Because if we're already having this view, then there is a problem that needs to be fixed.
Honestly, you said it's right there, Queen. There is a problem that needs to be fixed. I'm not sure we've had such, I don't know if this was scandal now, but I'm not sure we've had a lot of dust being raised around INEC prior to elections like we have had in recent times. And it's really sad. Most times, INEC is usually judged just based on how they carry out the election and not what happens before it. First it started with Joash Amokwito, if, of course, him being the new INEC boss, if he's partisan or not partisan. There was also conversations as regards the security of people's details with the Emeka Ike situation as well. So right now, the PR of INEC is not looking good in the faces of Nigerians, and they have a lot of work to do in this coming election. Starting from even Oshun's election, they need to do a lot as we count down to the big one in January. But anyway, that's how much we can give you this morning on Strips. We're going on a quick break. When we return, Breakfast Extra continues.
Now, mob justice, jungle justice, and public lynching often begin with suspicion and silent whispers before spiraling into chaos and violence. Most times, it ends with the accused being dead. No trial, no chance to defend themselves, hearts racing with adrenaline, and the accused slowly realizing their fate. After the rush of excitement or the supposed delivery of justice, as they may believe, what happens? On the 5th of October 2012, Nigeria woke up to one of its most shocking cases of mob violence, the Alu 4, which involved the brutal murder of 4 university students who were falsely accused of theft and burnt to death. A decade later, in the year 2025, 16 men traveling through Edo State were lynched and set on fire by a vigilante-led crowd, falsely suspecting them to be kidnappers.
Not just that, and of course, on the 26th of July, 2026, a 25-year-old Ibrahim Mbaya was killed by students over alleged phone theft. Ibrahim, who spent the night at a friend's, was accused of stealing his phone by morning. Now, being only 2 in the room, he became the suspect and was subjected to humiliation, degradation, and brutal torture despite his plea. After he was beaten to the point of unconsciousness, he was taken to Jos University Teaching Hospital, where the doctors confirmed him dead upon arrival. Now, this particular incident has sparked public outrage and government action. However, the question that remains is, why does jungle justice continuously thrive in a society that is governed by laws? Joining us to unpack this conversation is Friday Osarodion, Esquire, legal influencer, and associate the Timeless Practice. Thank you so much, Mr. Osarodion.
Just to explain this legal influencer for me.
Thank you for having me. Okay.
Thank you, Friday. Friday, we've talked about, I think, the most obvious jungle justice that we've seen in Nigeria. There's no excuse for it. Because we even lament when we see the vigilantes, the police people, slapping people with machetes and all whatnot. We have laws. So what is happening with those laws and implementing it to situations like that?
Well, you see, laws are made for men and not men for laws. So the fact that a law is in place, it does not automatically mean it is enforced. So there are, agencies put in place to enforce these laws. So now, a very good example of these agencies is the police. Now, it's only matters that are reported to the police that they can investigate. And then the people who are within the scene where these things happen, this responsibility is on them to report these matters to the police. And once these matters are reported, then these matters can be followed through. What now happens later is a different discussion on its own. But every citizen, every person has the duty to report every crime that you see, that you witness, not to take the laws into your hands and prosecute that person.
Now, you talked about reporting.
Yes.
Which I think some people perhaps have toed that line in the past or probably even present. But it looks like there is this delay in our justice system. There's this delay from our Nigerian police officers. Even sometimes we don't even trust the process, because we talked about, we were talking about security yesterday. Our correspondent told us that, some bandits were arrested, but we see that some of them somehow were released. So it looks like the people do not trust our justice system. Do you think perhaps this distrust, just leaves people no choice than to just take things into their own hands?
The fact that there is a problem with,
delayed justice.
Delayed justice. Yeah. And this is not just an African thing, not just a Nigerian thing. This happens in, various climes. Not, although, in advanced countries, the justice system is a bit fast. And I will tell you why. The reason it is faster in advanced countries is because the police, first of all, will investigate your matter before coming to arrest you. So once you are arrested, it's just little or more, added to what they already have, and then they go ahead, and take you to court. But the way our system works is that you get arrested first before the investigation begins. And that's how you see that sometimes some people are overly detained, and then, talking about delay in our justice system, it is a fact. It is a fact. But that does not warrant taking lives unjustly, extrajudicially. Because even that in itself is a crime. You are using one crime to tend to solve another. It cannot be done. I agree with the fact that, yes, there is delay in our justice system. It takes time and all that, but eventually it gets saved, although we know it's not all that gets saved at the end of the day. There's a lot that happens in criminal justice system. You have to come from the police, you go to courts where the prosecution, we have to now prove beyond reasonable doubt. This particular burden of proof on the prosecution is universal. It's global. You have to prove beyond reasonable doubt. And if there are not sufficient proofs, there are no sufficient proofs to nail the criminal or the suspect in this situation, the person goes on free. Look at the case of O.J. Simpson in America. O.J., in fact, the judge told O.J. Simpson that, I personally believe that you committed this crime. He killed his wife. I personally believe that you committed this crime. He said, but I do not have enough evidence to convict you. That was how O.J. Simpson went home free. They sued him on civil grounds, and they won because the burden of proof in a criminal matter and that of the civil matter are not the same. In civil matters, the burden is on the balance of probability, whichever is higher. Even if it's on a scale of 100, there is 51-49. The one with 51 wins. But in criminal matters, the evidence must be overwhelmingly clear. They must be overwhelming. So there is delay, yes. It happens even in other crimes. And then, even with that delay, sufficient evidence must be given. It doesn't justify killing someone because you are even breaching the person's rights. You are violating the person's rights. Section 33 of the 1999 Constitution as amended guarantees our rights to life as citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So what now gives you the right to take another person's life? Because you say the justice system is slow. What now gives you the right to take the life of another? That in itself is a crime. You are violating another person's right. We are complaining that, yes, the police and other forces are brutalizing us. We too are now brutalizing ourselves. You cannot justify that. So
Friday, in situations like this, because it is troubling, like you just said, if we're brutalizing ourselves, then what was left? Now, when we find ourselves in such situation, who bears legal responsibility? Is it the individual? Is it the community, security agencies that failed to intervene, or everybody who was witness? Because at this point, of course, the only way we saw that was because somebody was videoing.
Yes. Okay. Now, before I, delve directly into your question, let's settle things out.
Please.
The fact that you are looking, the fact that as we're sitting here, your 1,000 naira, is missing. You are looking for it. And then you searched me and found 1,000 naira in my pocket. Doesn't mean that it is the money that you are looking for. What if before I walked in here, I had 1,000 naira in my pocket? What if? But the way, this jungle justice thing happens, immediately the money is found. Thief, 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 thief. And the person gets beaten. Just like that. And eventually, killed. So the way it works, everybody must first of all understand. There must be an awareness. Because the majority of the reasons people do these things, there are a lot of reasons. There are a lot of factors that, give room for this jungle justice thing. Number one is ignorance. Some persons don't know that, you are not supposed to do that. In fact, there were, for some days ago, there were videos trending online. I don't know if you saw them, where they will catch a suspected
I was going
thief.
to go there because it looks like we're now being creative, or people are being creative with this thing. And I was going to ask you, when you catch a thief now, we've seen this happen in the month of July. It's been trending.
Yes.
We've been seeing people being creative with this, in quotes, suspected thieves, whereby some have been told to dance, some have been told to work out.
Exactly.
Some have been wrapped up like a package to be sent, to the east, basically.
Yes.
Duct tapes and all that. Is that also a crime? Because some might say, I didn't kill them, I'm only using them to my own amusement or small entertainment. Is that a crime in itself?
The thing is that I think I need to, first of all, make something clear.
Yeah.
Everybody has his or her right guaranteed by the 1999 Constitution as amended. Chapter 4 of that Constitution, Section 33 down to Section 46, which talks about how you can go and enforce these rights. Everybody's rights, every single person's right is guaranteed. Guaranteed by that, chapter of the Constitution. Irrespective of the fact that the person is a suspected criminal, however heinous that crime seems to be. However, even if it's murder, kidnapping, just mention rape, anything, that person's right is still guaranteed by that law. The person's the person has a right against torture. You cannot torture that person. Section 34, the person has right to dignity. You cannot beat that person. You cannot humiliate that person. You cannot publicly shame that person. You cannot publicize that person as a thief. Why? The court has not pronounced that person as a thief. Who are you?
So you're saying even the person recording the video?
They are committing crimes. They are committing crimes. They are violating the rights of the other person. Two wrongs cannot make a right. Nigerians need to understand that fact. Two wrongs cannot make a right. Two wrongs cannot make a right. The fact that you suspect that this person has committed a crime, report the person to the police. Volunteer to come and act as a witness. To testify against that person. Since you say you know. Since you say you know. Because if the thing is, if we give ourselves, if we allow this jungle justice to continue, to allow everybody to do the justice that they think, Nigeria and even the world, wherever it happens, will be back to the state of nature that Thomas Hobbes described as brutish, nasty, and short, where might is right. It becomes survival of the fittest. It becomes, our civilization will crumble. Because, you see, justice is not a one-way thing. Justice is a three-way street. That's the pronouncement of Justice Oputa in the case of Josiah and the states. He said justice is a three-way street. In that case is a murder case. Josiah was accused of murder and all that. So the Supreme Court had to rescind that case for retrial. Why? Justice Oputa said that justice is a three-way street. Why? There is justice for the person that is accused. The defendant in court, the so-called murderer, there is justice for that person. There is justice for the victim of the crime. So justice is not a one-way thing. There is justice for the victim of the crime. There is justice for the society at large. Now, so you can say that there are now three sets of justice or three layers of justice in one matter. So if you are now pursuing only your own, what happens to the rest? Now, what then is the justice for the accused, if I may go on with it? What then is justice for the accused person, for the defendant in court, for the suspected murderer in court? The first justice for that person is that the appropriate procedure must be followed. A person is not a criminal. That is why I will always kick against parading people that you suspect to have committed crime. So what if it is now, they now go to court, and it's now discovered?
So hold up. You're saying now that what we see on TV, where they say set of gangs have been caught in Edo State or whatever states they are, and they're on display, and they interview them, is also wrong?
It's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. They have not been pronounced guilty by the court. So if you are calling them suspects in that situation, the
Nigerian police know better than to do that.
You see, these are the issues. So if they are not, see, these people have rights. If at the end of the day, my question has always been, because a friend of mine did his final year project on this from the University of Benin. He did his final year project on this thing. If at the end of the day, after publicizing my face, I am now, proven innocent in court, what happens to my, image? What happens? What happens? Because with that, I will want to apply for a job somewhere, and somebody will bring up the video. This era that we are, almost nothing is hidden anymore. So what happens? So the long and short of what I'm saying is due process must be followed. However slow, you should follow it.
Now, talking about Ibrahim Mbaya that was, killed for allegedly stealing an iPhone 12, what would you say these perpetrators stand? What would be the law for them right now? But wait, Friday, before you answer that question, because the way your head is spinning like you're about to go on let's go on a quick break. When we return, we continue this conversation. Welcome back. Now, before the break, we're talking about jungle justice, about the student from University of Jos, Ibrahim Mbaya. And of course, we have with us our lawyer, Mr. Friday Osarodion. So Friday, I was asking you that, what law are we using for these perpetrators as Ibrahim has died from allegedly stealing an iPhone 12 and jungle justice happened to him?
Okay. To answer this question, without, digressing, I will make reference to the lawful case.
Yes.
Those guys that were, killed at the Uniport. Yes, Nalu community. Do you know that case was tried? And this matter happened in 2012. That case was tried, and in 2017, 3 persons were sentenced to death for this matter. They went in for it. So what am I saying? The same rule we have to apply. The same rule we have to apply. The thing is, this is Jos, so the northern part of Nigeria, yes, of course. They use, the penal code. There are 2 sets of criminal laws in Nigeria. We have the criminal code, which applies to the south, and then we have the penal code, which applies to the north. Now, for the South, Section 316 of the Criminal Code talks about murder, tells us what murder is, and then the punishment, you find it in Section 319, which is death. Now, for penal code, they don't call it murder, they call it culpable homicide. You find that in Section 220 of the Penal Code. Now, the way it describes what murder is, it includes those that participated in it. The way it is that if a crowd, there's something we call principal offenders. Principal offenders. If, for example, 5 people, conspire to go and rob, for example, and on the day of the robbery, one of them got sick in the morning and couldn't go for the robbery. The 4 of them went for the robbery and they got caught. The 5 of them are robbers. The same rule applied to all of them.
Even though one was working from home?
Even if you didn't even work, you were sick, almost at the point of death, the police, they will come for you, they will treat you, you will wake up and face the consequences. So the rule applies to all of them. That is how it works. So if, for example, 5 people are together, one of them has a gun to the knowledge of the 5 of them, and then they are aware that he has a gun, and somebody comes to fight them, the person brings out the gun and shoots that person that comes to fight the 5 of them. The 5 of them have killed. The crime applies to the 5 of them. With this, I believe you're already getting pointers to what we are saying. So this is a mob action. As alleged, it's a mob action. Evidence are there anyway. So now, someone is killed. As many as are arrested. And then during the trial in court, there are sufficient evidence to show that they had a hand in the matter. They'll have to go in for it. It's a joint thing.
So
they're all joint offenders.
There, the videos, everybody.
No, those that were recording, those that were recording. Now, the way the law looks at it is to what was your participation? If, for example, he wants to hit a stick on the guy's head, and it's like, Friday, please help me with that stick. And I was the one that gave the stick to him. Both of us have. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the person that was recording has his own problem. You understand? So it is the court that will not determine the extent of his culpability. Because the rule is that once you see a crime, you have a duty to attempt to prevent that crime. As a citizen of Nigeria, you have a duty to attempt to prevent that crime.
Well, Friday, we're running out of time, but in 30 seconds, tell us, what can we do to curb this madness? People who are videoing and posting, alleged thief, making them dance and all. Now you've said it, that is a crime. How can the agencies that were assigned to make sure that this menace does not happen, how can they continue to enforce what they're supposed to do in 30 seconds, Friday?
Okay, the first thing I will have to throw it to the general public, to the citizens at first. Because, It is what you report to the police that the police will know. Police are not everywhere, as it, as it were. Now, every time a person is arrested and you see people gathering around that person, please report to the police. You may not be able to stop the crime, but report the crime to the police. And if the matter is reported to the police and the police did not do anything, we can now know who will be facing. Not when you now go ahead. Don't record the person. What if that person was your brother? Will you bring out your phone and record? So we're very selfish people. What if that person was, don't record the person. Don't make the person dance. Report the person to the right authority.
All right, Friday Osarodion, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us as regards this conversation. And I'm really hoping that Nigerian citizens were paying attention to this conversation, because it's beyond just, us wanting justice. Everybody wants justice, we understand, but then we must follow due process. It's very important. It might be slow, but at the end of the day, justice will be served. So you're not a judge, you're not a lawyer, so you should not be the one to take laws into your hands, all right? So just ensure, if you suspect someone has stolen from you, do not lynch them, do not beat them, do not make them dance, do not make them go through unnecessary workout. Just report to the Nigerian police. And I'm Nigerian police too. I'm hoping that you would know that you should not be displaying criminals except they have been proven in court that they are one. All right, so we're going to go on a quick break. When we return, Breakfast Extra continues.
And Plateau State is battling a cholera outbreak that has so far claimed lives and put hundreds at risk. According to the state's Commissioner for Health, Dr. Nicholas Bamlong, the state has recorded 441 suspected cases and 14 deaths across 4 local government areas since the outbreak began in June 2026. The cases have spread across 25 wards and 107 settlements in Mangu, Jos North, Jos South, and Bakinladi local government areas, while Mangu, which recorded 53 suspected cases and 10 deaths in the early stages of the outbreak, has not reported any active cases since the ending of July. Transmission continues in parts of Jos North, Jos South, and Bakinladi.
Now, out of the total suspected cases, the 20 tested positive through rapid diagnostic tests, while 26 infections have been fully confirmed through laboratory tests. Cholera outbreaks are not new to Nigeria. However, year after year, communities across the country still grapple with preventable deaths linked to contaminated water, poor sanitation, and inadequate healthcare infrastructure. Beyond emergency responses and treatment centers, many Nigerians are asking deeper questions. Now joining us to discuss this and answer these questions is Dr. Tuyi Mebawondu. Dr. Mebawondu, thank you so much for joining us on Breakfast Extra.
Thank you for having me. Sorry, I had wanted to be in the studio. That would have been an interesting conversation, but it's okay.
It's fine.
We'll push everything out appropriately.
Definitely, we'll do that. Thanks to technology.
Yes.
The state has recorded hundreds of suspected cholera cases and even several deaths in just a few weeks. What factors typically drive outbreaks like this?
Thank you so much. There are critical factors, because let's look at the history of cholera in Nigeria. We saw cholera first in 1972. From 1972 to 1991, we didn't have any case of cholera. But from 1991, we started having in year 2000, 2018. Now, cholera has become a yearly repeat in Nigeria. What are the factors driving cholera in Nigeria? Now, you can look at cholera and understand clearly it's a disease of socioeconomic challenges, where the marginalized, where the poor, where the vulnerable are most affected. Now, what are these? Poverty is an issue in cholera. Government neglect is an issue in cholera. At the fundamental of this is malnutrition. And all this is layered on 3 main things: water, sanitation, hygiene. That is it. Now, anything that interferes with water, sanitation, and hygiene will push out cholera to the society. Now, in Jos, what are you seeing? IDPs, wars, of course, banditry, poor government institutions, no water supply. People are defecating openly. They are pooping openly. And then we are now in the rainy season, where all those excreta are washed into water supply, where fruits are contaminated, where people have no access to basic sanitation, basic hygiene, where we're still trying to use split latrine or even poo openly. These are the factors that are actually driving the yearly cholera epidemic, not just in Jos, but in Nigeria.
Well, Dr. Mebawondu, let's talk about, you've also mentioned, the IDP, sanitation, and, the public defecation. Why are we still struggling? Is it not something we can curb? Why do you think we're still struggling to break this cycle?
Now, basically, this thing falls within the purview of the local government. Let's say the government, specifically the local government. They are supposed to ensure sanitation. They are supposed to ensure hygiene. They're supposed to inspect water supply and ensure that these things are delivered. They're supposed to make provision for nutritional things that will benefit children. If we are the number 2, if we have as much as 50 million people openly defecating, and that accounts for about 5 million households defecating openly all around the country, when they are displaced from their location and they cannot have access to basic sanitation, when water supply is available to just 5% of households in Nigeria, then you understand why these things are still like that. Government is not paying the requisite attention to these activities that should help people to escape diseases and poverty. So that's one aspect. So then secondly, at the level of individual, we're not taking decisions to better our health as it is. Now, even if you campaign and tell them, don't do this, of course, they may not have options, but there are a few things they can do in terms of protection of their water source by keeping it in a good container and putting, even if it is one of those water guard, put it on inside the water and drink the water appropriately. But it is what it is. The environment itself is not helping. And cholera typically indicates how into environment, human health and animal health are connected. As long as you neglect any of those things, you neglect your environment, you neglect the human health, you neglect animal health, you are going to come back to have diseases. So, unfortunately, instability, insecurity, banditry is also worsening the health situation as it is.
Now, Dr. Mebawondu, of course, we expect the government should play their own part in terms of helping or improving sanitation, environmental sanitation. However, we still see that government has a long way to go, is found wanting as regards providing that. And at this point, it's only normal that the citizens should take their health even more seriously and in their own hands. So what would you say individuals should do to prevent cholera?
I've repeated this severally on different media, that now government seems to be failing us, and indeed we have to take decision by ourselves. What decision are we supposed to take? We take decision on our health. Now, first, at the level of local government, we must get education. Now, we shouldn't be using internet alone or social media alone to abuse people. Let's look to improve. Let's use it to improve our health. What do I mean? You can prevent cholera by basic engagements. Wash your hands, okay, or sanitize your hand. There are critical points of washing your hands. When you're approaching your dining table, you have to wash your hands because that's where you transmit the germs. You don't forget, cholera is an orophical disease that you pick from your poo-poo, the germs, and put it into your mouth. It can come through your hands. It can come through the food you eat, through the water you drink, and even the fruits you are taking. So at this point in time, you have to sincerely ensure that you wash your hand regularly. When you go out and you're coming in, try to find a place, try to wash your hand before you touch anything in your home. This is a time to not to eat open fruits. Naked fruits that you are not going to peel. If you are going to eat the food, you have to wash the food properly, the fruits properly before you eat. Now, on the street, people take ice creams or even ice cubes. Germs could be hiding inside those ice cubes. And then other thing is that you have to sanitize your environment. You have to keep everything, some of these things clean. The simple thing to get water to drink is actually, to sanitize, to put sanitizer in the water, like water guard, which will help, reduce the particulate matter and the germs there. Now, individual, we have to go to the level of individuals now to ensure that we get prevention against cholera.
Now, Dr. Mebawondu, tell us, do we have enough facility to be able to fight these constant outbreak of cholera that we have in Nigeria and in Jos?
We don't have enough. Listen, now, the best place to deal with cholera will be at the local government primary healthcare centers. We have 30 to 34,000 primary healthcare centers all over Nigeria. Only 20%, maximum 10%. 6,000 out of 30,000 or 34,000, 6,000 are the one working. You are in a cage there. By the time you go round to the local area in around Badagry or around Ekwe, you will see a lot of moribund, decommissioned primary healthcare centers. They're not working. Apart from that, the fact that they're not working, you don't have human resources to deal with those things. So for us, if we cannot solve the critical health situation in our system, it's a problem. And that means that we have to provide human resources, we have to provide facilities. Those are not available. Now, even the NGOs, most of the funding they're getting has diminished. So what we now look at is to figure out how, for instance, at the level of a faith-based organization, what education can they put out there? What intervention can they do? How can they go into the communities and educate people, especially during this kind of outbreak? The rain is here now. Flooding is there. Excreta, particulate matters are floating everywhere, contaminating everything possible. What are the education are we going to do personally at our local level, involving the Community Development Association, involving the traditional rulers, involving the faith-based organization, the churches and the mosques in those environments, to go right ahead and find something useful to dispense to the community. We must commend their effort, but again, it can't be enough. So we just have to really see what we can do within that purview. So all the various smaller ministries that deals with women and youth and empowerment and all those things should consider such an education as a social investment. That's very important, or else we'll keep having that repeats of cholera, typhoid, Lassa fever, and all that stuff.
Dr. Mebawondu, when it comes to cholera now, for those who are suffering from it, is there a cure? What are the steps to be taken when someone is aware that they have it or they know someone who is affected by it?
Now let's get to the basics. Now cholera is waterborne disease essentially, transmitted by orophycal roots. Okay. Now once somebody ingests certain quantity or dose of the cholera germs, it enters the body within hours or sometimes up to 4 days. The symptoms the symptoms manifesting. That's the incubation period. Now it could be constitutional symptoms, tiredness, weakness, and all those things. But later, you now see the classical signs of cholera, which is actually watery stool, very frequent bout of watery stools, like rice water, does not smell, and it just keeps coming and coming. Body cramps, vomiting follows. The body cramps, the person loses fluid, the mouth is dry, the person is lethargic, and gradually, moves into unconsciousness. So now, the point is this: once a person has that kind of first sign that could this be cholera or you're having diarrhea, you have to first of all, seek oral rehydration solution. It's prepared by putting about, let's say, a bottle of 2 bottles of small water, small what do you call the water they sell, the Miraculous water. Let me use that name for convenience. Then you put that big bottle of water, you put salt into it, a level teaspoon, and you put about 10 level teaspoon of sugar in it and mix and drink. of course, there are certainly a lot of oral rehydration solution that can be put into the water that is cheaper. I expect that at this level, those things should be distributed to people to use, and they should be taught how to use them. Then, the vaccines, as this condition is coming out, I expect government to roll out vaccines to people to prevent the occurrence of the fatal form of cholera. So now, when you have those diarrhea, you have to actually drink water. When it's getting when it's getting worse, you have to seek health care solution. You have to seek health care advice. So vigilance is important. Community engagement is important. Individual action also very important.
Well, Dr. Mebawondu, in terms of vaccine, how often should they take the vaccine, or is it one-off?
No, it's not one-off. Of course, if the vaccine can at least last for 1 year or thereabout. So what happens is that when we have an outbreak of cholera that is severe, the best thing for us is to deploy vaccines to the community. When you're having an IDP, which is a situation that can worsen cholera and compromise water supply system, all we have to do is move vaccines there to prevent outbreak of cholera. During this rainy season, we look at vulnerable community and deliver the vaccines. And for all I care, the vaccines should be able to be available within Nigerians of vaccine, So we should be able to make those things available at that level. So with education, with vaccination, with better provision of sanitation materials, we should be able to say cholera bye-bye to Nigeria.
Right. Dr. Mebawondu, before we round up this conversation, can you just tell us what will be your advice to the government in terms of swift response to this outbreak, and how best you think they can move so we can curb the outbreak and the spread?
First and foremost, with due respect, I'm sure the government is very aware of what they should do. What we're having is lethargy. Government is not just doing, they know what they should do. Okay, let's help them. The lowest hanging fruit is actually education and community engagement in those areas. Now, this can be done by even primary health care people there. Make the primary health care people active, make them functional, then deploy your health educators and nurses and environmental health people to those communities to educate, seek their water supply, teach them how to have drinkable water, then bring your vaccine into the place. That is then why you keep educating them in the language they can understand. Engage the local people, engage the government, engage the traditional ruler, engage the government, engage local people there. They can help you. Engage the churches, the mosques in that area. They can actually help in disseminating critical information and distributing water guard to those people who are having that diseases. Then when you strengthen the health center, you create a referral system that can help transport critically ill people to the center where they can have intervention. And then also distribute ORS solution, distribute it to them so that people can then get it. But the sustainable thing is for you to work on water supply, sanitation. In addition, because indeed, if you have 50 million people openly defecating in Nigeria, if you have 35% of people that are severely malnourished, honestly, these are critical areas you have to address if you want to take away a lot of diseases from the country. I'm sure government is aware, but there's a difference between awareness, actions, and results. Right. So that is where we have to work on. So all of us, you are doing your own bit. You are educating people. I am talking. You are spending your critical time to let people know that this is here now during the rainy season. People should also learn to understand and take necessary actions.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Tuyi Mebawondu, for sharing your insights with us. We appreciate it. And the cholera outbreak in Plateau State is yet another reminder that access to clean water, proper sanitation, and quality health care remains a matter of life and death for millions of Nigerians. While emergency responses or critical, lasting solutions will require better public health care systems and collective action from both government and citizens. Now let's go on a short break. When we return, Breakfast Extra continues. Stay with us.
Hello and welcome. It's time for Breakfast Headlines. My name is Chiwata Onyema. We begin with security development. Grief gripped the Naridom community in Kauru, local government area of Kaduna State, as residents gathered to bury the 30 victims of the July 27 attack during a solemn mass funeral attended by grieving families, community leaders, and sympathizers. The victims, including women and children, were laid to rest amid heartfelt prayers for lasting peace and an end to the recurrent violence in the community. Speaking to News Central after the burial, residents said the station's sustained coverage gave national visibility to the suffering and helped draw the attention of the authorities. In the meantime, U.S. Representative Riley Moore has condemned the July 27 attack on a village in Kaduna State that reportedly killed at least 30 people, including children, and called for urgent action to end the violence. Moore urged President Bola Tinubu's administration to intensify efforts to tackle insecurity across Nigeria's middle belt and protect vulnerable communities. He also called for the safe return of a seminarian abducted in Benue State. Meanwhile, the defense headquarters says troops neutralized more than 100 terrorists in July and rescued over 390 kidnapped victims during coordinated military operations across the country. Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Michael Onoja, disclosed the figures while briefing journalists in Abuja. He said the armed forces have sustained pressure on terrorist groups, bandits, and other criminal elements, assuring Nigerians that ongoing operations will continue until security threats are decisively eliminated.
Despite the challenges that we have had, a lot has also been achieved between May and July, particularly in June. Of course, there were several successes for this month of July, and our intention is that going forward, we'll continue to increase the successes until such a time that the issues of insecurity become a thing of the past. During the month, we neutralized over 102 terrorists, with 345 terrorists and criminals arrested. We also rescued 393 kidnapped victims. Additionally, 57 insurgents surrendered to troops, while 59 arms and 1,811 rounds of ammunition were recovered. Similarly, the overall successes recorded in the fight against crude oil theft has continued to frustrate the activities of economic saboteurs. On the whole, the armed forces have significantly degraded the capabilities of criminals and terrorists across the nation.
Now to politics. As preparations for Nigeria's 2027 general election gathers pace, the Independent National Electoral Commission has opened the candidates' nomination process to public scrutiny by displaying the personnel particulars of presidential and National Assembly candidates. The exercise covers documents submitted by candidates contesting the presidential and National Assembly elections, including President Bola Tinubu, Peter Obi, and Atiku Abubakar. According to INEC, the publication is in line with the provision of the Electoral Act of 2026 and allows Nigerians to examine candidates' credentials and supporting documents. INEC says the exercise forms part of its revised election timetable and is designed to promote transparency, strengthen accountability, and enhance public confidence in the country's electoral process. Still in politics, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar says he has no regrets about opposing former President Olusegun Obasanjo's alleged third-term bid, following Obasanjo's recent remarks expressing regret over selecting him as his vice president. In a statement issued by his media aide, Atiku said he would never apologize for resisting any attempt to extend presidential tenure beyond constitutional limits. He described the Senate's rejection of the proposed amendment in 2006 as a victory for democracy. Atiku has urged political leaders to focus on Nigeria's current economic and security challenges rather than revisiting past political disputes. Despite a turbulent global economic landscape, the Director General of World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, believes Nigeria possesses a unique window of opportunity. Speaking at the 20th anniversary celebration of Streams Owers and Coon, she emphasized that the country can successfully navigate current financial hardships by identifying and leveraging emerging global markets. The central appeal of this strategy, according to the WTO chief, lies in developing a robust official minerals value chain, stressing that the immediate priority for the nation must be tangible progress rather than theoretical growth.
Maybe we need to talk to some of our neighboring countries to see how we can get together and combine it with renewable energy. This is one area globally where supply chains are looking to decentralize, and we could be there trying to seize that opportunity. Now, I know there's movement in that direction, but it's a good one where we can create jobs. What I think we need now in Nigeria is to focus on creating jobs for young people, on doing things where people can actually feel the impact of the reforms so that they can feel the dividends of reform. That's when you can get more people to support making even more sacrifices for the future. And I think the opportunity is there to do a lot of things to make that happen.
It's when you have trade,
Now, fresh fighting has erupted between Ethiopia's federal army and Tigray's rebel forces, raising fears that the country could be sliding back into a full-scale conflict less than 4 years after a devastating civil war. Tigray officials say federal troops launched an assault near the Sudanese border with heavy artillery reportedly used in the disputed western Tigray region. They claim the clashes were still ongoing while Ethiopia's military has yet to respond publicly. The renewed violence follows months of growing tensions, with both sides accusing each other of preparing for war. Regional analysts describe the confrontation as the most serious military escalation in northern Ethiopia in recent years, warning it could either signal the start of a wider offensive or a dangerous show of force in a region still recovering from a conflict that claimed hundreds of thousands of lives. And that's a wrap on Breakfast Headlines. Breakfast Extra continues in a moment. My name is Chiweta Onyema.
Welcome back. Now, the federal government says it plans to phase out electricity subsidies by 2027, a move officials argue is necessary to create a more financially sustainable power sector and attract investment. For many Nigerians, however, the announcement raises fresh concerns about the cost of living, especially at a time when households and businesses are already grappling with rising inflation and high energy expenses.
Our supporters say removing subsidies could encourage efficiency, improve service delivery, and reduce the financial burden on government. Critics, however, question whether consumers should pay more before seeing a significant improvement in electricity supply. Now, join us to discuss this is energy lawyer and chair of the energy group at the law firm Bloomfield LP, Dr. Ayodele Oni. Dr. Oni, thank you so much for joining us on Breakfast Extra.
Dr. Oni, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
And Dr. Oni, the government says ending electricity subsidies is essential for, the long-term sustainability of the power sector. Why is this step being considered now, and how significant is it?
Okay, thank you very much. The first thing is that we have to look at the shortfall, power sector shortfall. It's about 358 billion for the first quarter of this year, January, February, March. That means 51.95% of the total generation invoice cannot be accounted for, partly because or largely because of subsidies. Now, what the subsidies mean is that power actually costs X, but government is saying pay much less than that. We will pay the difference. Now, more often than not, government then struggles to pay that difference. And I see two arguments. Argument from government that it can actually be fiscal rascality, but argument from the average Nigerian that you've taken away almost everything else with benefit around subsidies, from petrol, taxes are up, all of those issues. So government needs to be able to balance that with also infrastructure and seeing other palliatives that are not just throwing cash around. Right, so that's the challenge. Although it's improved slightly by 14.4%, But that improvement is not because there's more generation or more invoices being paid. It's that the number of commercial and industrial entities are going off-grid and generating their own power.
Now, Dr. Oni, many
It's
Nigerians
significant.
are worried that this could, translate into higher electricity bills. What impact should households and even businesses realistically expect if these subsidies are removed?
Oh, prices are going to go up. That's the truth, particularly for bands B to the last band. I think band A is not enjoying subsidy anymore, unless my knowledge is wrong, but I'm fairly certain I'm right. At around 209.50 kobo, band A isn't getting subsidies. Everybody else is a large percent of the population, over 80% of the population, maybe even closer to 90, over 80% of the population is band B, C, D, E, right? But so once it's removed, what must happen for the prices to even go up, for you to pay more, is that there must be more power. If you don't have electricity, it doesn't matter what the tariff is, you're still paying zero for not having electricity, right? So price will go up. That's the natural effect. For the same quantity of electricity you were getting before, you're going to pay much, much more.
Well, Dr. Oni, one of the arguments is that the subsidy removal will attract investment and, of course, improve electricity supply. Do you think that is what will happen?
I don't think it's automatic. I think there are other issues across the value chain. For example, transmission is not in a great state. The rule is that you spend money every year to improve your infrastructure, particularly when you consider that between 1987 and 2015, there were no major infrastructure, transmission infrastructure projects. Maybe they started in 2012 to do a few, but more substantial around 2016, 2017. And you can imagine between 1987 and 2012, you're talking about almost 15 years more, and you can imagine what the population was in that period. Population increase. So the transmission infrastructure has been bad. It's radial. That's why once you have a cut in one part in the northeast or the northwest, almost all of the northeast does not have power. A large part of the northwest does not have power. It's radial. It's not the new technology. Stuff like SCADA is also being implemented, instead of being supervisory control and data acquisition, and emergency management system. The market design is good, but implementation has been a problem. You do not have speedy reserves. A power plant that takes over when one or two power plants constrain off or go, right? So the implementation of the market design is also part of the problem. We do not have emergency management system. So yes, it may improve, but it doesn't be slight, right? Because you then see a few more people investing. But the problem is not even generation. The problem is, if transmission is the problem, if distribution is the problem, distribution, maybe states may be able to deal with it as distribution companies, as states take over large aspects of the market, yeah, right. But transmission government still has a substantial role to play. You have now have the independent system operator. So tariffs is one of the solutions, but it's not the only. It's a part of the solution. It's not a silver bullet that resolves everything. Government still has to look for a way of improving transmission, and states have a role to play, particularly around distribution and creating their own wholesale market. I think states do can have their own wholesale markets, as the federal has a wholesale market arrangement. So market design, implementation, tariffs to play a great role too. But those are not the only solutions.
All right, Dr. Oni, if you're saying that there's no guarantee that the power supply would improve if the subsidies are removed and the tariff goes up, I think this is where Nigerians have a problem. Because if you're telling me to pay more and you cannot guarantee giving me consistent power, what now justifies me paying? If you're talking about the fact that we need to look at transmission now, shouldn't the government be investing in transmission first rather than talking about subsidy at this point?
At times you can argue at the end that if there isn't money, then there isn't money to invest. Now, unless government finds money through other means, right, to improve that transmission, and that I think this government believes in what they need to do. You know, at times we don't feel effect immediately, and I'm not making it them. And at times, if you don't make that decision, you never would. Then it becomes a case of to remove subsidy. But one important thing we've not said, and that fund needs to be set up, and it is functional, fair to the average citizen who is poor, who cannot afford it, right? It requires government to set up that power consumer assistance fund so that they can help the less privileged. That said, it's an situation, right? And two, it's wider. It's either government or money elsewhere. And remember, it will be 1 year or 2 years to take the transmission network where it should be. We'll talk about 5, 10 years, maybe even more, because these monies were ought to have been. These monies should have been over a 2-year period. You don't want to spend it in 1, 2 years and get results. No, it wouldn't work. So I think government thinks, there are 3 or 4 things we need to do. Let's start doing them in no particular order, or else we'll never start doing them.
All right, Dr. Oni, we're going to take a pause on this conversation. When we come back, we'll continue. Please stay with us.
Now, welcome back. Before the break, we're talking about the electricity subsidy, and we have with us Dr. Ayodele Oni, who's the energy lawyer and chair of the energy group at the law firm Bloomfield LP. Dr. Oni, right before we went on the break, something came to mind, and I saw online, and the question there was the subsidy necessary in the first place only to bring it back now? Would you say that this reform was a trial and error thing?
Oh, yes. Yes, it was. It's historical. To be honest, the subsidy is an historical thing. It's the other way we have subsidy for oil and gas. Government, Nigeria was an oil and gas, or still remains an oil and gas country with a lot of natural risks. So government thought that we could benefit as citizens if we got subsidies, if we paid less. And historically, too, for power, the gas was very low price. That's why the gas sector has not also improved, right? Part of the reasons, government forced gas sellers to sell gas to power plants at a very low price when government still owned the power sector and ran the power sector from generation to the end. So it's thing that we've had new. It's not today, it's not this government, it's not previous government, for several years, where the structure was such that government owned everything along the value chain, and government thought that citizens should benefit by paying minimal sums. Like inputs was very cheap. So cheap, they thought citizens should to pay very little for.
Dr. Oni, I'd like to know, what safeguards do you think government should put in place to protect, low-income business owners, especially as this transition has been made?
I was first mentioning the Power Consumer Assistance Fund. For citizens who can't afford it, there's a need for the government to set up and properly fund the Power Consumer Assistance Fund. I know some of it is cross-subsidy from maximum demand customers and from Band A. At the moment, that's the way it would work. But there'd be mandatory contributions from generally designated consumers and consumers specifically. And the portion of net service charge recovered through tariffs and expenses at around 5% or so. So I think the government needs to first set up this. Second, there should be more communication and more sensitization so that people can retrofit and do more solar, more wind.
Dr. Oni, it looks like we've lost you there based on your audio, but thank you so much for having this conversation with us. Electricity, of course, remains at the heart of Nigeria's economic growth and everyday life. And as the country moves towards a subsidy-free power sector, the focus will be on whether these reforms deliver what Nigerians have long demanded: reliable electricity, fair pricing, and a more efficient energy system. We look forward to that as Nigerians. We're going to go on a quick break. When we return, Breakfast Extra continues.
Welcome back. Now, for many Africans, obtaining a U.S. visa has long been an important gateway to education, business, tourism, and family reunification. But from August 1st, the process entered a new phase following a major restructuring of U.S. visa services across parts of the continent. The United States has announced the centralization of routine visa processing at selected regional hubs. A move, it says, is aimed at improving operational efficiency, strengthening security screening, and enhancing service delivery. While embassies in affected countries will continue to provide other consular services, many visa applicants will now be required to travel to designated locations for interviews and processing. The decision has sparked conversations across Africa. While some see it as an administrative adjustment, others are concerned about what it could mean for applicants, particularly students, business travelers, tourists, and families who may now face additional travel costs, longer waiting times, and logistical challenges. Now, beyond the immediate inconvenience, the development also raises broader questions about mobility, access to opportunities, and the future of U.S.-Africa travel relations. So what exactly changes under this new arrangement? Who will be affected the most, and how should intending travelers prepare? And joining us this morning to help unpack these issues is Tina Nwanya, the Senior Travel Consultant at Nje Tours Limited. Tina, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Now, Tina, let's just start from the beginning. What are these new changes to how the visa processes will be handled now across, Nigeria and Africa?
Okay, the changes is not really different from how it used to be. Just that it's just making it to be 20 hubs in Africa, meaning that they want a centralized system where they'll feel more scrutiny, more efficiency, and then getting a better result for applicants. But just the difference is that people need to plan ahead. Ideally, or initially, before you can easily say, okay, fine, I want to get a faster appointment date, you just have to stay up night, check it. But now you need to ensure that you plan your travel 6, 9, 10, even a year ahead in order for you to visit the United States if you want to do that. So just a more longer period for appointment dates. If not every other thing is still the same.
So basically, in terms of appointment dates, now it's hard to get appointment dates very close to your time of travel.
Initially, you can actually apply for an emergency appointment if your case is actually different, and that is subject to approval from the consulate. So for starting yesterday, of course, they are telling you that if you want to travel to the United States now, you need to plan ahead. And you remember, I don't know whether you're aware of the introduction of getting a closer appointment date. You can get an appointment up to like 10 days, but just that you have to pay more. And that was introduced by the president of the United States, current president of the United States, Donald Trump, that says that I think it's going to elapse till the end of 2026. That's a situation whereby you can get your appointment in 10 days. But that does not guarantee that you're going to get the visa. They're just trying to tell you that you can get your appointment within 10 days and you get to pay more. So I think all these are just training. They're just doing a feasibility study of how the whole thing is going to play around. If definitely after the end of the year, they're going to extend it, we don't know yet. But for now, they're saying with this centralized system, plan yourself ahead. They don't want a situation whereby you can just come up and say, I want to travel to the United States. No, it must be a planned itinerary for you.
Right. We saw, I'm not sure, please confirm, in terms of having to travel now, is it true that you have to travel to Lagos alone in terms of application, or is there still Abuja?
So there's no longer Abuja for the normal B1, B2, that is the business and the tourism for the normal individual. But for the diplomats, they can still get their visa processed in Abuja. And then also for some special humanitarian ground, and say maybe very special emergency cases, it can still be done in Abuja. But for now, every other application is going to be in Lagos. For the students, you have to come down to Lagos. For the business personnel, you have to come down to Lagos. So Abuja still functions as they should, but Abuja is going to be focused on very special people, like the UN officials. They'll still have to process their own application in Abuja, but they're just saying that the general public, you have to move down to Lagos. So if you've gotten your appointment initially, you have to reschedule your appointment to Lagos.
Well, Tina, to be fair, I think the next question will be, if all of this is happening in terms of, making sure that, they check all applicants, would you say the visa refusal rate will now reduce if there's this new system now in place?
The visa refusal rate is definitely not going to reduce because, one thing about the United States is every individual is being granted a visa based on merit. And we all know that when you get there, you have to face a 2-minute interview, a 3-minute interview, and that solely lies on you. So wherever or whatever is your situation, you have to face it there and then. So it's not going to cause maybe any reduced rates or maybe any improved rates of visa approval. Everything still boils down to the same. It's just the individual that will not determine, okay, is this trip worth it? Will my decision or my explanation to the consulate still means that I'll be granted the visa? Outside that, we can't say if the visa processing rate is going to be increased or reduced because now they're watching your social media, whatever you say, whatever you post, how you've been communicating online. All this would actually also mean if you'll be granting that visa or not. So it's pretty much not going to affect anything based on their decision. Every decision has solely lies on the individual. How are you able to convince them?
Yeah. So in terms of US, of course, we know we have a lot of students who wants to go there. We have business travelers, we have tourists and families. You've mentioned earlier that the B1 and B2 are not the ones who are will be doing their visas here in Lagos. But in terms of all these categories, which of these categories do you think will feel the impact more in terms of this change?
Two of the categories, the students, which tops the list, and then the business personnel. Why do I say the student? Because, when you're being issued your service I-20 details, you have a start date, you have a time for completion, the start of the semester, the start of the section. And proud to now, getting of appointments actually not been easy. And with this making the whole thing into 20 hubs, people might tend to come from Benin Republic to Nigeria. That still makes for you to have a longer wait time. So the students will actually be affected because imagine I've paid, I've gotten everything and still not getting an appointment. And remember I said that there's an emergency appointment, but that still depends on the decision of the consulate. So you might not achieve that and then you still have to now defer your admission. At the end of the day, some people might say, okay, fine, I think I might have to look for a second alternative. And then for the business travelers, just like what the UK does, where they give priority to for your visa to be processed within 24 hours, 5 working days. So for the US, it's not going to be the same. I have a business meeting with a partner. I need to close some deals, and I'm being given a time frame. With this whole visa thing, from an agency perspective, you might not tend to achieve that based on the time frame if you're not getting an appointment on time. Remember, I also said that they rolled out some appointment, or maybe they're sitting their feasibility study for you to get an appointment within 10 working days. So we don't know how that is going to be, how much of a time would that be in place. But for the student and then the business personnel, it's going to be not good for them because their business, their resumption time will be affected. So they might want to tend to look at an alternative destination.
Right. Now, in terms of, this process, the U.S. government is saying that this move is aimed at, of course, improving efficiency and strengthening their security. But from your experience in the travel sector, do you think that the way they are going, they'll be able to achieve that goal they are looking for? Or do you think it's going to create, like you just mentioned now, more barriers for applicants?
Yes, they would achieve what they are looking out for, because they're saying in terms of security, in terms of so that they're having a centralized system, they would definitely achieve that because, you would tend to apply earlier than you normally would. And that gives them a more time to scrutinize you, check your medias, check your settings and the like, and then see if you are admissible into the country or not. So with the security team they were trying to achieve, they might be able to achieve that. But on the other hand, when you're talking about for people coming to invest, the students coming in, the business personnel coming in, they might not tend to achieve that if the wait time of the appointment takes more longer time, except maybe they have more manpower and then they have faster means of doing things, so it might not really affect them. But when it comes to the security of what they're trying to achieve, yes, it's good for the system. It's good for them.
Right. So for anyone who's trying to apply now, apart from, like you mentioned, we should apply early, what other documents, what other steps do they need to put in place to get ready for their visas, apart from, planning their trip ahead of time?
If, for instance, you are in Abuja, from an agency perspective, it would be okay for you to have booked your flight tickets ahead of time. That is one. And then number two, ensure that you're honest in all of your questions that you've been answered. Just say, for instance, in your DS-1 system form, you're being asked some parts, you input your social media handle, you state how much you earn. Just try as much as possible to give an honest answer, because we've seen from time past where you wonder why this particular individual, with everything, your qualification, you're unable to get the visa. This particular individual, when I say there's not much thing that you achieve, but you're able to get the visa, honesty. Try to be honest in your application. This is you, this is what you do. They just want, the consulate just want to see, I am coming back to Nigeria. I have things that I'm doing in Nigeria. I have my family. So outside of the whole wait time, you plan ahead of your trip, ensure that while filling your DS-1 system form, you're honest in your dealings. All your documents are properly checked and packed ahead of time. Not the last minute where you say, I can't find my passport, I've not gotten this photo specifications. Try to plan yourself ahead of time. Book that ticket, answer your details correctly, and get to the venue a day, 2 days ahead of your specific day of interview, and everything will be okay.
Tina, what we're hoping, of course, looking ahead of all of this, as somebody who has seen a lot of people cry for refusals and a lot of people, being joyful, their visas are out. What would you like to see from both the U.S. authorities and, of course, our African government to ensure that, these visa processes remain accessible, transparent, and fair for all applicants?
There's need for the both governments, both policymakers to come together for, say for instance, the visa waiver. Initially, before now, if you've been to the United States before, you don't have to book an appointment. You just go do your Dropbox. And so I think they should be talk in that aspect. This would also drastically reduce the wait time for applications, and because if there's that visa waiver, it gives more time, it gives more clarity. Even the security thing that they're trying to achieve, it will even also make them to achieve that faster. And then, initially, if you at a certain age, you don't have to also go to the embassy. Say you're 80 years, you don't have to go to the embassy, just go and drop your passport. So I think visa waiver will actually be the answer to most of the visa problem. And then for people that tend to travel from one hub to the other, if you require a visa as well to also come to Nigeria, I think the Nigerian government should also make that, how will I put it, make that more accessible for you to have your visa. So I think government should talk when it comes to visa waiver. So many things will be avoided and more results will be achieved.
Well, Tina, I want to say thank you so much for having this conversation with us. And of course, we hope that these situations that have been put in place will pan out well for everybody, both students, business, and those who wants to go see their family. Thank you so much, Tina, for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, the movement of people across borders remains an important part of global connections, whether for education, business, tourism, or family ties. But policies around mobility must also consider accessibility and the realities faced by those seeking opportunities abroad. Now, as the new U.S. visa processing arrangement takes effect, applicants across Africa will be watching closely to understand how the changes impact timelines, cost, and access. Of course, Tina was here to have the conversation with us. We say thank you. And of course, you were looking for Chiwete, but before I bring him back, let's tell you that the views and opinions of all our guests are theirs only, and we are not associated with that, with News Extra. Chiwete, welcome back. He disappeared to do his visa application. To say that.
Interesting, but I think it's a good conversation.
Thank you.
Because when it comes to visa, conversation about visas, these are things
it's
that
very triggering.
It's triggering, you know, because a lot of Nigerians want to go out to explore, right? Let's even look at it from the Jackba angle, right? Yeah. People just want to literally go and look for better opportunities. And I think that traveling is some kind of way to educate yourself.
I agree.
And enlighten yourself as well.
But at the same time,
I think countries should just make it easier for other countries.
I'm not saying make it. So when they say make it easier, you ask for all the documents.
Yes.
Now, when you get all the documents, you can verify. You still see some people who have all the documents. You say you don't think they should. If they travel there and they do something wrong, send them back.
Well,
you have all the cameras and all the drones. Send them back. You don't have to make them waste.
I'm not sure this is what it is, but I suspect that perhaps it's a situation whereby they have limited number
per day
of visas, maybe per day or maybe per person.
So do you lose all your savings before they finally?
So it's a case of maybe I've exhausted mine, or you've not just, as long as it's a human being involved.
But better still, don't take their money until you're ready to give them.
That is what I think we should be talking about, because I don't see why I'm paying for a visa, you don't give me the visa, but my money doesn't come back.
Well, I guess it's something the government have to discuss. We've come to the end of Breakfast Extra for this weekend. Make sure to join the trio, Joe, Olif, and Benga throughout the week. And we will see you next weekend. With that, we say...
Bye, and have an amazing week.
Au revoir.